The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Bock score from Nedick at the Old Garden. And I'm going to ask Hal Bock, what's the score?
The score tonight is the start, believe it or not, of the NFL calendar, which starts tomorrow with the signing of free agents. So I wrote this week about the free agent class of 2018 and the potential impact it'll have on the draft, which is next month. So there are a lot. The main subject really is quarterback, and that's as it should be, because that's the pivotal position on the team, and there are a lot of teams who are jockeying for quarterbacks, and so that's my subject for tonight. I wrote in the column, which has yet to be posted, but I wrote my column this week about all of the potential quarterbacks and where they might go. The interesting thing is that the number one guy, the movement has already started. They can't officially sign anybody until tomorrow. Wednesday is the start of the free agent signing period. But, of course, they negotiate before that. And the number one quarterback in the field is Kirk Cousins, who's been squeezed out of Washington. Washington acquired Alex Smith in the offseason. He'll be their quarterback. So Kirk Cousins is looking for a new home. And it appears that that's going to be Minnesota, although the Jets are still in the race. The Jets have some $100 million under the salary cap that they can spend. And
how?
Appealing number of, yes.
I don't know if you heard it. Locally here, they were reported that Kirk Cousins has signed a 3-year guaranteed contract with a team that was in the playoffs last season. So I guess they couldn't announce the other team yet.
It's the Vikings.
I'm sure it's the Vikings.
Yeah, and it's the first time any player has been given, and it's huge, and totally guaranteed 3-year contract.
Well, that's very unusual in the NFL because
it's the first time, according to what the local.
This is for a quarterback who's never won a playoff game.
Well, he was with the
Redskins. He's the best quarterback in the whole array of available quarterbacks.
And so supposedly Bradford's going to the Cardinals. Keenum is going to Denver.
Yeah, he's going to get Denver.
And Breeze signed a 2-year, $50 million deal with the Saints to stay with the Saints.
New Orleans? Yeah. It's interesting because Breeze is 39 years old. So, that's a very chancy age for a quarterback, although Tom Brady is 40 and he keeps showing up in the Super Bowl every year.
Yeah.
The team that's left out in the cold here is the Jets, who are probably going to wind up with Josh McCown again.
They signed him again. Yeah, 1 year, $10 million.
So I told you Allen could handle this, right?
Yeah. I saw this on the.
Tell me what he can handle.
I got a question. I got a question as a baseball guy for you football mavens. Being in Philadelphia, there's a lot of conversation about what's going to happen with Nick Foles. And, Foles leads the Eagles to the Super Bowl, MVP of the Super Bowl, but yet he's the second, he's the backup quarterback to Carson Wentz, who went down with injury. And you guys have any comments about Foles? Because around in the Philadelphia area, there's all kinds of, questions about what's going to happen. I mean, obviously Nick Foles is sort of sitting in the catbird seat. He can pretty much, demand whatever he wants and probably sign.
There's no question about that. I mean, when you're the Super Bowl MVP, you can write your own ticket.
Right.
Would he be willing to stay in Philadelphia? I doubt it, because if they're going to devote the job to, or dedicate the job to
Wentz,
the Super Bowl MVP be a backup.
Right. Well, that's the question that's being asked around here. And again, I'm not a football fan. I mean, I follow it from afar. I don't follow it like I do baseball. But the fact is that Wentz went down with injury, and when he did, everybody was, oh my God, what are we going to do now? And so what happens is that, Foles steps in, has a terrific season, and winds up winning the MVP of the Super Bowl. And but he is definitely, the backup to Wentz, because the Eagles have, they've pledged their future in the next couple of years to Carson Wentz.
Unless the Eagles are willing to give him a bushel of money to just be the backup, right, I would think that Foles is headed elsewhere. And
yeah, I would think so. I mean,
I've got a good place for him to land. The Jets, Josh McCown is not the answer for the Jets. They need a younger guy, and
why would anybody go to the Jets? They have no talent on the team.
Well, you got to start somewhere, Alan. You got to start with a quarterback.
Trying to go get his brains beaten out for 3 or 4 years, assuming they can become decent in 3 or 4 years, which they haven't done in 50 years.
If you got a bushel full of money,
spoken like a true Jet fan, Al.
No, I'm not a Jet fan, but I'm just saying reality. What doesn't matter who the players are, the coaches, the general manager is. So it just keeps. It's like the Knicks. It just keeps going on and on and on.
Well, good, bad, or indifferent, a current team in any sport can't rely too much on their history. Like before 5 years with any team, it's a totally new ball game. So different general managers, different coaches, different quarterbacks, good, bad, or indifferent. You got to hope for the best. And how else do teams? We talked about this last week in terms of replenishing the good teams. You get the high draft choices, go to the bad teams, and that's been the age-old thing.
You have to have people who know what they're doing. I haven't seen any indication. I haven't seen any indication that this group knows what they're doing.
With this Jet group?
Yeah.
Well,
the general manager and coach know what they're doing.
Okay, we'll make you the owner. What do you recommend? What do you recommend? What would you do?
Good question.
That's a good question. Probably, you have to start all over again with new people in charge.
Okay. They did that about 3 years ago.
I know, but it doesn't work. It's not working.
Well,
sometimes you have patience also.
Yeah, sometimes you do, and maybe 50 years isn't enough. It's like waiting.
I'll tell you this: they're going to be able to draft a pretty good quarterback because they're sitting with the 6th pick, and there are a bunch of really talented young quarterbacks coming into the draft. So they'll probably be able to wind up with somebody. At worst, probably the Heisman Trophy winner, Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma. That's not a bad place to start. Although they're still sitting with these 2 kids, Bryce?
Petty and Hackenberg, and neither of them has shown any indication that they can play on an NFL level.
Then cut them. Why are they sitting around? It makes no sense.
I know that, yeah.
Cut them and replace them with other bodies, That's my thought. Who knows if Hackenberg is any good? He hasn't taken a snap yet.
No,
I don't know.
A lot of people were down on him, before, from the start. He can't play NFL, be an NFL quarterback. And there's a column in the Daily News today saying the Giants should give Geno Smith another chance. Are they kidding?
Oh, for God's sake.
God,
that is
man.
ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
I know.
You may believe that Eli Manning has 2 years left on his contract, and he's 37 years old. Now, you may believe that Eli Manning has a couple of years left in his, body, and he can still operate. But Geno Smith has no future.
We know that, yeah. You know that, and we all know that. But they don't know that.
Giants have the 2nd pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And what they have to do is decide what quarterback they want down the road and pick that quarterback. They have the kid from UCLA, Josh Rosen, whom they like a lot, and they have the kid from USC, Sam Darnton, who is also a great prospect. They have the kid from Wyoming, Justin Turner, who lit up the combine. So there's plenty of talent out there for them to choose from.
Yeah, look, the Browns have had high draft choices for the last 14, 15 years, and they always manage to pick the wrong guy.
Well,
so I mean, you have to have people in the front office who know what they're doing. And especially the way the system is today, there's more of a premium on that.
Always was.
I mean,
really.
It's a crapshoot.
Yeah,
the draft
exactly.
is a crapshoot. You don't know. I mean, you don't know if a hotshot player in college is going to flame out in the pros. You don't know. You're taking a chance. But that's you go with what information and what knowledge you have, and you make your pick. The Cleveland Browns have the number one pick, and everybody thought that they were going to go for a quarterback, and instead they traded with Buffalo to get Tyrod Taylor, who they'll probably use as their quarterback, and they can use that number one pick to get the running back from Penn State, Barkley, who's supposed to be really a can't-miss running back. So, that's how that will shape out. Probably, I don't know for sure. They haven't told me what their plans are, but that's what it would look like, and that will leave the Giants at number 2 with the pick of the litter. Anyone they want, anyone quarterback that they want. Now,
they're lucky it's a very, very quarterback-rich year.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Ralph. I can't recall another season where there have been so many quality quarterbacks up for draft.
Yeah. Allow me just for a second to break in and introduce the panel. That was David Hubler, you just heard from, who is also going to stay on the line afterwards, if he would, to be part of the George Case fiasco correction.
Don't call me a fiasco, Ralph.
The correction. No, the correction.
Correction. There you go.
It was my fiasco. I kind of messed up.
Hey, no problem. No problem.
Don't feel bad, George. I had one last week also.
It was for me. We've had, between us, Al, we've had a technical week to die from.
Yeah.
And not in a good way. Let me tell you that.
So now he wants to redo it Friday night at 7. So I agreed to that.
Beautiful. We got 2 shows to redo this week. Sometimes it happens that way. But George Case III is here. Al Blumkin is here. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. So I will let you guys get back to your fascinating discussion and ask you to what quarterback controversies, one guy we were talking about Philadelphia, who's going to play quarterback, one guy coming in, reminds me of the San Francisco 49er thing when Young was coming in and Montana was
Young
going
and Joe
out.
Montana, that's right.
Right.
Well,
very
Dallas Cowboys had that situation many years ago, and Tom Landry rotated quarterbacks on each down. He had Staubach and Craig.
The little kid from Stockton?
No, that was Eddie LeBaron and Don Meredith in their first year. He had one later on with Staubach and Craig Morton, which I thought, benching Staubach for Craig Morton was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I went to that game in Yankee Stadium when the Giants played Dallas that first year.
The Giants were the Dallas lost 0-11-1, and the one was a 31-31 tie with the Giants.
Yeah, God, the Giants were great in those years. Just as an aside, there were 3 or 4 years there that it was fun. Anyway, any other quarterback? There was another one with the Cowboys. two guys coming in at the Starback replaced somebody, if I'm not
Craig
mistaken.
Morton.
Craig Morton.
I just mentioned that, yeah.
Well, there was another one at the Packers when they had Bart Starr and Lamar McCann, the two quarterbacks that sort of vied for playing time.
And Don Horn was another one who was in on
that's right.
competing with Bart Starr. And I
Horn
think
was a guest on this
show
some time ago, right?
Don Horn was on. Am I correct?
Yeah,
We've had him.
right.
You really want to go back to ancient times. You have, in the early 50s, you have Norm Van Brocklin and Bob Waterfield with the Rams, but that's, 67 years, 68 years ago already.
That was the leather helmet era.
Yeah.
You guys, leather helmet, Jesus. You know what? Leather helmets, you're right. And then also they had the single bar face mask, and some guys didn't even have a face mask. I think Bobby Lane never wore a face mask.
No.
Wyatt Tittle was succeeded Charlie Connolly in New York during that period, where the Giants were, very competitive.
Right. When
Charlie Connolly was old man when it started.
They got
away a while ago. Tittle just died a couple of months ago.
Yeah, last year I think
he
it was.
and Connolly became a pair. They
That's
say
right.
in the NFL that if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks. You got to invest yourself in one man. The guy who's your quarterback is your quarterback. And for example, the New England Patriots had Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup to Tom Brady, and he never took a snap. But Brady knew how good he was and was concerned that they might, because Brady is now 40 years old, that they might ease Garoppolo in. So he demanded that Garoppolo be traded. It was done against Bill Belichick's wishes. It was negotiated by the owner of the team, and Garoppolo wound up in San Francisco. And all of a sudden, the 49ers became competitive. They won, I think, their last 7 games with this kid at quarterback.
Well,
so
5 games, yeah.
Brady was a pretty good scout, wasn't he?
Yeah. Speaking of the Patriots, there's a speculation that Amendola is going to leave them to go to Miami because Belichick thinks that those guys are interchangeable, and they probably got Edelman coming back.
And speaking of the 49ers, they just picked up Sherman as a great defensive back, and that can solidify
I was confused by that. The Seattle Seahawks released him. I guess they don't think he's going to recover from that Achilles. And so they let him go, and the next day he signed for 3 years with the 49ers.
Yeah,
I wonder if the Niners examined him, or...
I think they'd have to if they're investing that kind of money.
Yeah, so that's just total differences in opinions on medical staffs.
Yeah, some team is giving Malcolm Butler 3 years at $60 million.
Wow.
After he didn't
I think
play
it's
in
the Titans. I'm not sure, but the one that Belichick benched for the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
the defensive back. Yeah.
Yeah, with no explanation.
How
he
is
never
that,
explained what that move was all about.
How is that
he's a mysterious guy.
Patriot franchise going to be remembered in history? Are they going to be remembered as just a cheating bunch of guys, or will they get their due based on how many victories they've had, how much success they've had?
Well, you can't argue with success. They have how many Super Bowl rings? I mean, that's a lot, you know? And they're there almost every year. So now they benefit from playing in the AFC East, which has a bunch of nobodies in that division. And so you know that they're going to be in the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, you win a couple of games, and suddenly you're in the Super Bowl. So I mean, that's a setup for them, really. As
a Jet fan, I want to thank you for referring to the Jets as nobodies. That's the nicest thing anybody said about them in the last 30 years.
Did you hear what Alan said before? Did you hear Alan? Alan ripped them up and down, didn't you, Alan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Who doesn't rip them as someone who's an apologist, if nothing else? You don't have to be a fan, but you want them to do well. You want both teams in New York to do well, just like you want both teams in baseball to do well. It's good for competition. It's good to anyway, we know that before the Jets do well, it's again going to be another 5 years. So that's all part of the mystique why we keep coming back. Too late to play out.
My argument is,
as fans,
re-signing Josh McCown delays it another year because he's not the future. He's 37, 38 years old.
That's what they did with Fitzpatrick last year, the year before.
Same thing.
They re-signed him for $12 million. He was useless, and he wound up. I agree
with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Do you want to break in a draft choice nice and easy? Would that help?
If you could, yeah. If you could.
So maybe it's re-signing him may not be the worst idea from that standpoint.
As long as you draft a quarterback who's going to be your future, that's okay. Have him around as a tutor. Have him around to teach the young man. But if you don't, then you're paddling in place. You know, you're not getting anywhere. You've got to start planning for the future. And Josh McCown is not the future for the New York Jets. So, I mean, you've got to make a move. That's my opinion. I mean,
I can't agree with you
more. As I said,
there is
so much
one
talent out there.
Almost a quarterback controversy could be a sign of strength. Like you say, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks. But there's the devil's advocate that one good quarterback pushes the other quarterback, and it's nice to have depth around in case one guy takes it in the face on opening day.
Well, yeah, of course. You gotta have somebody who can step in. Don't forget, I no longer call the NFL the National Football League. I now call it the National Concussion League because it leads the world in concussions. So people are going to get hurt. Sooner or later, somebody's going to get hurt. And you have to be prepared for that eventuality, and you have to have replacements on hand. So sure, you got to have another quarterback, but
with that comes the natural instinct of a fan is to love the guy who's sitting on the bench in hopes that when he comes in, it'll be better.
He'll turn it around.
I wonder how often that happens. And if you guys can think of some quarterback coming in and winning the job.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady's a good example.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's a good example. Drew Bledsoe got leveled, and they had to put in Brady, who was, a sixth-round draft choice, I think.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it clicked. And it has now for God knows how long, 12 years, 13 years, I don't know.
No, it's longer than that. It's 16. Now it's 16, 17 years already.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Brady's around 40, he came in, say, at 23, so, it was 17 years. So.
His first year was 2001, when they won their first Super Bowl.
Right. Now, this brings up the subject again. Yeah, I just wanted to mention this one thing again about, with Philadelphia, because I'm so close to it. What do you do? In other words, they don't really have a backup. In other words, they had Foles backing up Wentz, and that turned out great. But they have this other young man, I forget his name, Stillwell or something like that. He played a couple downs and really didn't show anything. So, I mean, if they get rid of Foles because he's going to be too high priced, MVP, he's going to go somewhere else, and that leaves Wentz, and Wentz, is the future.
Coming back from an injury.
Coming back, you don't know. It was an ACL, so you don't know how mobile he's going to be or whatever. And then you say, okay, if he goes down again, then what do you have? So, I think it's a quandary. I think the Eagles did extremely well. I mean, Wentz was the second pick, I think, overall pick in the 2016
he was
draft.
Yeah. Right, George.
And it turned out great. I mean, here he played at North Dakota State University. Well, that's certainly not the place where quarterbacks are born. But he did, and the scouting reports and the Eagles front office did a wonderful, thorough job in selecting him. And I remember, all the Philadelphia papers when he was selected say, "Oh my God, who's Carson Wentz?" I mean, they didn't really know until all of a sudden he got out on the field, and then they knew who he was because he did a great job.
And then personally, I don't think they're going to move. They would consider moving Foles until after the training camp started and see how Wentz's leg is holding.
I mean that could be, Alan. All I'm saying is that I think that Nick Foles is he's in the driver's seat. I mean, some team is going to throw a lot of money at him, and he's going to say, "Hey, this was great. I love my experience. I'm, Super Bowl champ, but I've got to look out for my future and my future."
Maybe he'll go to the Cardinals after Bradford gets hurt again.
Yeah, well, that could be too, right? So.
Nobody came out of college more heralded, I think, than Teddy Bridgewater,
right?
Who was a high draft choice of Minnesota,
out of Louisville, right? I saw him play in college, and he was a great prospect. But I don't think he's done anything.
The two quarterbacks, one in UCLA and one in USC. That's intriguing. Who did better when USC played UCLA?
I think USC beat them because they're better. They were a better team.
Okay. Did
but
the two quarterbacks?
There's two others. There's the kid from Oklahoma, Mayfield, and the kid from Wyoming.
Turner.
Okay.
Then you also have another team in the mix here. The Indianapolis Colts don't know what the condition of Andrew Luck's shoulder is. He missed all of last year. And he was a franchise quarterback.
Right.
Is he going to be able to come back? I don't know.
They've got a ton of problems besides quarterback.
Well, but
this team is in very bad shape overall.
Well, are they in worse shape than your team, the Jets?
Jets are not my team. My team is the Steelers.
Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry.
I say they were.
You were a season ticket holder. Don't you lie. You were a season ticket holder.
That was 38 years ago.
Oh, come on. Once a fan, always a fan.
No.
Basically, I'm a Jet fan.
I put the Colts in the same level with the Jets as far as problems.
Yes, ineptitude over the years. Let's put it that way.
Ralph, you're a Jets fan?
I am.
There you go. What do you think? What do you think of Allen turning his back on your franchise?
Well, he turned his back on the Yankees too, so that.
I did that once.
I know.
1960 World Series. That was the only time.
All right.
And I can't see the Pirates making it to the World Series in the near future.
Well,
and that was a fluke too in 1960.
Well, that was a magical year in Pittsburgh. Everything went right. Everything went, every single break that year.
There's a thing on Facebook today about the 60 World Series guys. Well, you Pirates fan know that the Yankees were the better team, and the guy came back and said, "Yeah, they were a better team, but who won the World Series?"
That's right.
Baseball, and George knows this. Baseball history is full of episodes where the better team did not win the World Series.
Absolutely.
I went to a seminar at the Brooklyn Historical Society on the 1953 Dodgers, who won 105 games and hit 285. And they said, they were this great, that great, that. And they asked for questions at the end. I said, I got one question. Who won the World Series that year?
Right.
I thought I was going to get killed.
How about the Cleveland Indians in 1954 They won 111 games.
Right.
And they got swept in the World Series by the Giants.
Yep, I was just going to bring that up. That's a classic example of a team that everybody thought was going to run away because of the fact that they won 111 games, and then they get into the World Series and they get swept.
Well, Hal, you wrote about this in your next to last book. The Chicago Cubs in 1906 won 116 games and wound up losing the World Series to the White Sox.
That's right.
Mm.
Well, how about the Yankees coming off 5 in a row? It's the 6th year, 1954, and they win more games than they won in any other single year.
Any of those 5 years.
Yeah, but the Indians were about 110.
How many games did they lose by?
8 games.
8 games.
Yeah, Cleveland beat the bottom 5 worse than the Yankees did.
Yeah.
The fourth place team, the Red Sox, won 69 games that year.
About 54.
I was what you guys are saying now is the fascination of sports. You never know.
You never know. Yeah.
Ian Andujar once said you can sum up baseball in one word. You never know, and it's true. You never know.
Right.
That's why we play the games.
Right.
Remember when I was a kid, there was an expression on paper. Remember that? You don't hear that much anymore. But, if you're going to play the game on paper, you're going to play the game on grass.
That's the thing about a lot of the analysis that goes on, and I don't mean to get off the subject of football, but it's probably the same, but analysis of, everything is computerized and all that kind of stuff, but it still takes the players, which are human beings, to perform out there on the field. And,
the Eagles were an underdog to the Patriots.
They certainly were.
Yeah.
They were a big underdog.
Yeah.
And
as were the Giants against the Patriots in the 2 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
That's true.
As were the Jets against Baltimore.
Right. These games are played by human beings
They certainly are.
Who have frailties, and you never know what's going to happen. That's That's the fascination of sports. That's why we go to the games. That's why we watch.
The year after the Jets Super Bowl, Minnesota was like 11-point favorite over the Kansas City Chiefs. In the next Super Bowl, and Kansas City just totally manhandled them. The Dolphins were unbeaten.
Had a great team.
The unbeaten Dolphins team was an underdog in the Super Bowl to the Redskins.
The Vikings were a terrific team. They went to the Super Bowl 4 times and they never won one.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills were a terrific team. They went to 4 straight Super Bowls.
Right.
And they never won one.
They lost every one, right. Yep.
That's right. You cannot, they play the game. That's why we play the game.
The Dolphins in 72 were an underdog, with a 16-0 record to Washington because the AFL, NFL prejudice was still out there to some extent. They were an underdog to the Redskins, and they beat them to finish unbeaten.
Well, look how many years the Atlanta Braves won the division championship and went into the World Series once.
It's like the Dodgers in the 40s, late 40s and 50s. Against, they went to, million World Series. They won the one time in 55. The Braves were like that.
Yep.
I think that 53 Dodgers, speaking of that, you mentioned them before, that was the best Dodger team ever.
Probably.
It was the same team, though, wasn't it, Ralph? Every year they had the same team.
Yeah, except in 53, Newcomb was still in the Army.
Left field.
Yeah. Newcomb was, in 53, Jackie Robinson wound up in left field because they had brought Gilliam up.
Right.
But Newcomb was in the Army that year.
The Giants basically had the same team for 4 or 5 years, too. They reconfigured it when they brought Willie up, but same guys, Lockman, Thompson.
Thompson, they traded. Thompson wasn't there in 54.
That's right.
They traded him for Antonelli, and without Antonelli, they wouldn't have won the pennant that year.
Right. No question about that. Amazing how they did so well trading with the Boston Braves. They got dark and stanky.
Yeah. And they got Antonelli from the Braves, but
that was incredible. As a bibliography to the Stanky and Dark trade, Vec, as in Rec, talks about negotiating with Horace Stoneham, and it's almost priceless. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Leo manufactured that trade. Is that how you remember it, Hal?
Yes, I do, because Leo wanted a team that was not home run hitters. He wanted a team that could run. He wanted a team that could play basic baseball, which of course we don't see anymore because everybody's swinging for the seats. But the Giants had 221 home runs in 1947, and they finished in fourth place or fifth place, wherever they finished. So Leo knew that they had to reconfigure that team. And he went right after Dark and Stanky as his second base shortstop combination. They were the keys. And from there, he had Lockman playing left field. He moved him to first base, and he moved Marty Irvin to left field. That was another very smart move on his part.
I think Irvin really didn't like first base. Irvin kind of forced
I don't think
the
right.
issue.
No, he hated it.
Yeah.
And the only point read was he kept from from when he first came there were Thompson and Lockman. The rest of them he got rid of.
Bobby Thompson,
and they were both speedsters. I contend that if Irvin played first base, they'd have been a better team because Lockman was much faster in that stage of Irvin's career. Really.
Well, Irvin started letting playing first base affect his offense.
That's true too.
He hated it there.
He drove in 121 runs in 1951, so he must have been doing something right, you know.
That was an early move.
And they had Don Mueller in right field, and they had Bobby Thompson move to third base to make room for Willie Mays, and that was their team.
And Hank
worked out pretty well.
Played a little second base.
Hank Thompson was having problems that season. And the Wes Westrom, even though he didn't hit for average, was a tremendous handler of pitchers. And the other thing he did, for a guy who hit 220 every year, he walked an awful lot. So when he was batting eighth, he would be very good at clearing the pitcher's spot.
Now, let me ask you guys, of the three, Campy, Berra, and Westrom, let's just talk defense. Is Westrom right up there with those guys defensively?
I think so, yeah.
Defensively he was, sure.
Because he wouldn't be playing as much as he did if he wasn't that good.
Well, he didn't have to be that good. Very few were that good. But I want to know if he could play defense with the
pitchers. The pitchers loved him, except for Hoyt Wilhelm. The pitchers loved him.
It was Richards when Hoyt Wilhelm was
Paul Richards. Yeah, Paul Richards, and he gave the oversized glove to Gus Triandos to be able to handle the knuckleballs of Hoyt Wilhelm.
He made him a starter, and when it came up to the Giants, he had several good years, but they had a catcher named Ray Katt, K-A-T-T, that caught Wilhelm, specifically, and Katt set a lot of past ball records, some of which are probably standing.
And Hal will remember being a Giant fan that they also had Bobby Hoffman, and they called them Soda Twins, Katt and Hoffman.
Bobby Hoffman, yeah, I remember Bobby Hoffman. He was an infielder. The line that I wanted to give you was Bob Uecker, the catcher-turned-broadcaster, said he had a solution to catching the knuckleball. He waited till it stopped rolling, and then he'd pick it up.
Right. So Uecker had so many great stories. I mean, he's just a funny guy. I mean, he was a marginal player, but he was okay. But his humor, I mean, and the reputation that he had of really looking at, like Garagiola, you laugh when you listen to some of these stories. And Uecker had a knack And that story about the knuckleball, I remember hearing that many times, and I've laughed every time I heard it.
Yeah.
I heard all the Yogi ones.
And they both had self-deprecating.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Euchre more, I think, more than Garagiola. Garagiola was kind of serious at good moments because
Garagiola had Yogi stories.
Yeah, because they grew up together.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I heard another Yogi one the other day. I read it somewhere. It said this is before one of the All-Star games, and these American League pitchers were discussing how to pitch the musial. So Yogi goes over and says, "You guys are trying to figure out how to pitch them in 15 minutes when the National League hasn't figured them out in 15 years."
Yeah. Right.
Campanella always would chat with the batters. He would talk to the hitters, try to
So Yogi did that also.
The game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yogi would drive Ted Williams crazy with a constant asking, "How's the family? How's this? How's that?"
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That was his thing. I mean, he wanted to do that to try to get the hitter's mind off of Williams up there. So he would have a conversation, and I know Williams would try to ignore him. I think not too long ago there's a classic picture on Facebook of Yogi trying to get Williams into a conversation, and Williams is just ignoring him.
Well, the famous Yogi Williams combination is in Allie Reynolds' no-hitter in 1951. Reynolds has the ninth inning, 2 out. Ted Williams is the hitter. He pops it up behind home plate, an easy pop-up, and Yogi goes back and drops it. Oh, my God, now I got to face Williams again with my no-hitter on the line? He throws another pitch to Williams. Williams pops it up in the same place. This time Yogi caught it, and Allie Reynolds got his no-hitter.
There you go.
Supposedly one of the Yankee owners said to Barrett after that, says, when the Lord comes to take me, I says, I hope I get a second chance like you just did.
Good. That's pretty good.
All right. Hey, we'll get a second chance next week to continue this, gentlemen. It was fun, and I want to thank you. It's made my Tuesday evening. And if you're listening out there and you like this offering, if you like any of the offerings on the network, would you be kind enough to box up some lightly used children's books and take them to the Head Start program wherever you live? Kids really need to read. They need to develop a passion. They need to get their noses out of the devices and the games. They need to become school ready, and they are our future. So do me a solid, if you would, and take those books to the Head Start program. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll be back same time, same bat station as Al Blumpkin would say. Say it, Al.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah, okay. See, I can't even get that right. That's why they call me the weak link of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't hang up.
Bye-bye.
Good night,
Adios.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.